red card. And Brett, I did think that we were done for the season, but then something just exploded all over Facebook and the internet, and it's just going crazy here. Mm-hmm. And that's because, Preston Zimmerman open mouth and inserted foot in many ways and tweeted, which is probably just an inappropriate format to make his comments or criticisms, but maybe not anymore. Maybe that's kind of the place everybody bitches and moans these days, right? So, but the point is, Zimmerman came out and just railed about everything, that he saw as unfair, and about all these fake Americans, as he calls it, playing on the U.S. national team. And I just thought, boy, we better get into this because I've had to deal with it now for a couple days online, so I might as well do a show on it, right?
Well, and we've argued this point back when the whole Timothy Chandler was originally coming to the U.S.
Yeah, another
was originally playing for us.
Fake American.
We had to deal with this issue then. We're going to have to deal with it later on. We had to deal with it back in '94. It's not. This isn't a new trend.
Actually, in '94, no one bitched about it.
Oh, and of course, nobody bitched about it then.
Because no one cared back then.
No.
When Thomas Dooley played for us.
I'm surprised how split the fan base is on this.
Well, I don't.
I read the tweets and I'm like, wow, this is massive ignorance. But
yeah,
I was surprised to find out a lot of people had the same thoughts. So maybe it's not pure ignorance. Maybe it's just a popular opinion.
Yeah. Well, on the "Don't Tread on Me" page. I think there was some good back and forth between folks, and it looked like, eventually people were kind of like, okay, I can kind of see the point of view that, they are real Americans too, and, but it took a while to get there. When you read the whole page and all the discussions going there were some good folks. In fact, the dog was on there, and he did a good job, I think, explaining both sides of it, but mostly explaining why, Preston Zimmerman was wrong. But let's get into that. Let's read what he said, because I think, the words speak for themselves more than anything else. And this, was over an hour-long period, I guess, that Preston was tweeting his holy balls off. And I guess no one thought it would stop. But he started by saying the following thing, and we'll just start there and we'll go on up. But he said, "I thought it would be cool getting Klinsmann as the U.S. national team coach, but I think it's actually worse than when Bradley was coach." So that's how he kind of kicked it off. I'm not sure how he justifies that. I mean, Bradley went all over the world getting all kinds of players as well. I mean, it wasn't Klinsmann who came up with the Chandler idea, right? I mean, that was Bradley.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and Jones
he got his first couple caps with Bradley.
And Jones, too.
And Jones.
Yeah, I mean, come on. All right, but we're heading towards it. He says, the requirements to get on the U.S. national team under Klinsmann, Preston Zimmerman says, is, number one, be a fake American, be born outside the U.S., and have one distant relative, U.S. distant relative. Oh, boy. And that's where it really kind of just hit me right away. He said fake American. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I'm pretty sure he's wrong. Because, I mean, okay, let's just look at this. How many fake Americans, then, under these particular rules that Zimmerman has lined out here? I mean, going back to '94, U.S. national teams playing in the World Cup. Thomas Dooley, all right, born in Germany. Hugo Perez, born in El Salvador. Ernie Stewart, born in Holland. Tab Ramos was born in Uruguay. Roy Wegerle was born in South Africa. Frank Lopas was born in Greece. Fernando Clavigo was born in Uruguay. David Regui was born in Martinique. Jeff Agus, Switzerland. I mean, a lot of people don't know that. Jeff Agus was born in Switzerland, folks. Preki, yeah, he's not American. He was born in Yugoslavia, as it was known then. And Pablo Mastroianni was born in Argentina. A lot of people don't know that. Carlos Mimosa was born in Colombia. And Benny Feilhaber. And everybody thinks Benny is like this crystal 100% American kid. He was born in Brazil. So I just think that, maybe we're just, some of these folks are missing the boat here, and so is Preston Zimmerman.
To argue against what most people will bring up as a counter argument against your list, players like Pablo and Benny moved to the U.S. at an early age.
Okay.
So then I think the big thing is that a lot of people who are labeling the fake Americans are ones who haven't really spent much time, if any time, in the U.S.
I think David Raji fits that. I mean, he barely spent any time in the United States. Thomas Dooley spent no time in the United States, really, before playing for the United States national team. But now look at him. Thomas Dooley is an assistant coach. He's lived in the United States for the most of his retirement life, right? And he's been a big major part in youth development in the United States. I would say that makes Thomas Dooley about as American as it gets at this point. Ernie Stewart, I mean, he still doesn't live in the United States, right? He's retired. Well, you want to kick Ernie Stewart off the team? But I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I'm playing devil's advocate right here.
Exactly.
No. I think the whole fake American comment was bullshit to begin with. I stand firm on the fact that if they have U.S. citizenship, they are in fact a U.S. citizen.
Yeah. Well, then go ahead.
I was just saying, they have the right that any U.S. citizen have, and that's to play on the national team if they have the opportunity.
Right. And I think, well, and this gets back to Preston's next point. I see the team, he said, is calling guys who are really Germans, who know they've got no chance of playing for Germany, so they'll settle with the United States. Well, okay, it's debatable whether or not they're Germans. Let's look at the guys that are playing that he's probably complaining about on the national team itself. And we'll start with Daniel Williams. Williams is not the most German name I've ever heard of before. Jermaine Jones, that sounds like, he probably has an American father. In fact, he does, and so does Timothy Chandler, and so does, so you've got Chandler, Jones, Daniel Williams. All their fathers were in the United States military, right? So, I don't know. To me, that makes them American enough for me.
Well, also, we don't for the most part we don't know how big of a role their father played in their lives. We know with Jones that Jones actually lived in the U.S. for a couple years of his life before his parents got divorced. He moved back to Germany with his mom.
Right.
We know Williams has a pretty solid relationship with his dad, at least because his father took him to the embassy to get his passport.
Yeah.
I mean, and he actually came out and said that he wanted to go to his father's country first before he made the decision. He came here and he felt an instant connection. He said even in Germany he felt more American than German. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've only got what he said to the media to go off of. There's no reason why we should doubt it. But then again, a lot of people are going to be skeptical, saying that, hey, he's really pandering to the media.
Yeah.
He's saying exactly what they want to hear. Yeah. And there's no way to disprove that.
There isn't.
Yeah.
And it may sound small and kind of, kind of goofy for them to say things like that, but I know a lot of people that have come to the United States for the first time and spent some time here for the very first times and just said, God, I want to spend the rest of my life here. It's kind of the immigrant experience in a lot of ways. There's nothing wrong with that. As far as whether or not, a player has to have this kind of percentage of a relationship with his American father or this amount of percentage relationship with his father to be, for them to be actually American. Yeah, I'm just not going to buy into that. And I just think that people like Zimmerman they don't get that. It's not easy being a kid who was born overseas. There's all kinds of, things going through your mind. And these are all very young kids outside of Jones.
Well, even with Fabian Johnson, I mean, just a couple years back, he was starting with the German U21s.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no reason to believe that he could not have pulled it together and played for the German national team, at least temporary. A couple caps here and a couple caps there. There's no reason to believe that he couldn't have done that.
Right.
But instead, he opted to take the one-time switch, so he cannot play for Germany ever again. He can only play for the U.S. and swapped over. He even went on to saying how his father's proud that he went and got the U.S. citizenship. Mm-hmm. Again, leads me to believe that he's got a pretty solid connection with his father.
Yep.
So we have no idea how connected these players are to the actual U.S. culture.
Yeah.
And yet people are sitting here saying that they're fake Americans, which again I think is a complete bullshit.
It's a pretty harsh statement. And then Zimmerman goes on to say, that's embarrassing when a good friend of mine, I would imagine this might be his brother though, says that he met one of the guys at the airport. We don't know which one, whether it was Chandler or Jones or whomever. And he couldn't reply back in English as a United States national player. So now I guess you also have to be required to speak English at least fluently enough to reply at an airport. So that's another rule that Preston Zimmerman has. I'm just saying this, and a lot of people may not know this, but there is a great portion of this country that spoke German right before World War II. And in some cases, some of them stopped after, during World War I, when it kind of was a negative thing to be a German American. But I can tell you, when I went and researched my father's side of the family, and they lived in a small town outside along the Ohio River here in the Midwest. The town itself had the newspaper for the town was in German. All the street names were in German, so it was Strasse this and Strasse that. And that didn't change until World War II. That's less than 100 years ago, okay? And what I'm basically, my point is that, I don't think the fact that some of these guys are struggling with their German, with their English, excuse me, at this point, makes them un-American. It's just a language, okay? And all those American citizens who, lived in towns that were German-speaking towns and had German newspapers, and I couldn't even research parts of my family because all the papers I were pulling up with their stuff in it were all in old-school German, which I have a hard time reading. So the point is, language does not make you American. There are plenty of Americans in this country who struggle with English and speak Spanish, and then there are a bunch of Americans who have English as a first lange and struggle with English.
Unbelievably poorly, exactly. I made that same comment earlier today. Yeah. Oh my god.
just go to Walmart.
And the funny thing about it is, obviously, it'd be nice if they spoke English, but then again, it's not going to it doesn't make them any less American, like you said, and it's not going to hamper their ability to play with the national team, because there are quite a number. We could actually start an entire team of German-speaking players, given the number of players that have played in Germany.
I think I put out a list like that. And the players
that currently play there too.
Yeah,
we could field an entire team, keeper to striker, not an issue.